You already know what a hippo looks like. Round, slow, half-submerged in muddy water, maybe yawning with that comically wide mouth. You've seen them in wildlife documentaries, in zoo enclosures, in children's cartoons, where they dance in tutus. You think you understand them. That is the most dangerous mistake you can make in the animal kingdom, because here's what almost nobody tells you. The hippopotamus is not a gentle giant. It is not slow. It is not docile. It is not herbivorous in the peaceful, harmless way that word implies. It is, by almost every measurable standard, the deadliest large land animal on the face of the earth. Not the lion, not the crocodile, not the elephant, the hippo. And the reason you don't know that, the reason most people will go their entire lives without truly understanding what a hippo is because the hippo looks like something that isn't dangerous. Evolution, in one of its strangest ironies, built a killing machine and then gave it the face of a children's toy. What lives underneath that face is something else entirely. Start with the body, because the body is where the illusion begins to collapse. A fully grown male hippopotamus weighs between 1,500 and 3,000 kilograms. That is more than some cars, more than a pickup truck. It stands 1.5 meters at the shoulder and stretches over 4 meters in length. It is, behind the elephant and rhinoceros, the third largest land animal alive today. But weight is not the point. Weight, in the wrong context, implies slowness, implies inertia, implies something you can outrun or outwit. You cannot. A hippo can run at speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour over short distances. On land, in water they move with a silent, gliding efficiency that their size makes no sense for, pushing off the bottom in a series of slow-motion bounds, covering distance with a speed that doesn't register until it's too late. They do not swim in the traditional sense. They walk along the riverbed and launch themselves upward, surfacing to breathe every 3 to 5 minutes automatically, even while asleep. And the mouth. The mouth deserves its own category. A hippo's jaw can open to 150 degrees, nearly a perfect straight line. The canine teeth, the lower ones, can reach 50 centimeters in length. They're not used for eating. Hippos are grazers. They eat grass. Those tusks serve one purpose and one purpose only: combat. The bite force of a hippopotamus has been measured at over 8,000 newtons, enough to bite a small boat in half, enough to cut a fully grown crocodile into 2 pieces, which they have been documented doing when crocodiles stray too close. This animal is not built for eating. It is built for fighting. The body is a weapon, every part of it. Here's something most people don't know that tells you almost everything about what the hippo actually is. Hippos secrete a red, oily liquid from their skin. For years, people called it blood sweat. It isn't blood and it isn't sweat. Scientists have identified it as a unique biochemical compound containing 2 pigments, one orange-red, one orange, that functions simultaneously as a sunscreen, an antimicrobial agent, and a moisturizer. The hippo built its own SPF 50 from scratch over millions of years of evolution. But that's not the part that should rearrange something in your thinking. The part that should is this. Hippos spend most of their day submerged in water, not because they love to swim, but because their skin dries out and cracks in direct sunlight. They are physiologically compelled to stay wet, and they are compelled to eat at night, emerging from the water after dark, walking up to 10 kilometers inland along established paths to graze, for 4 to 6 hours before returning to the water before dawn. This means that in hippo territory, every riverbank, every path leading from water to grassland is a corridor that a 2,000-kilogram animal uses on a schedule. Enter that corridor at the wrong moment and you will be between a hippo and where it needs to go. That is one of the most dangerous places a human being can stand on this planet. The statistics on hippo attacks are difficult to pin down precisely, and that difficulty is itself revealing. In the remote river systems of sub-Saharan Africa, where most attacks occur, record keeping is inconsistent. Survivors are sometimes far from medical facilities, and many incidents are never formally documented. Conservative estimates suggest hippos kill between 500 and 3,000 people per year. Some researchers believe the actual number is significantly higher. Compare that to lions, which kill roughly 250 people annually. Compare it to sharks, which kill fewer than 10. The hippo is not competing for a spot on that list. It dominates it, and the way it kills is what separates it from almost every other dangerous animal. Most dangerous animals attack as a last resort, cornered, protecting young, startled at close range. The hippo does not work this way. Hippos are territorial in the water and will charge boats, canoes, and kayaks that enter their section of a river with no warning and no escalation. They do not posture. They do not display. They surface and they attack. Reports from fishermen across Central Africa describe hippos appearing from nowhere directly underneath small watercraft, launching them into the air, and then attacking the occupants in the water. On land, the dynamic is different, but equally lethal. A hippo on land, between water and an obstacle, including you, will treat you as a threat to its retreat. The charge that follows is not a bluff. Studies of hippo behavior have found that land charges have a much higher rate of follow-through than those of other large African animals. When an elephant mock charges, it is usually telling you to leave. When a hippo charges, it has already decided. In 2014, a Niger river boat carrying 25 people was capsized by a hippo. 12 people drowned or were killed by the animal in the water. In Uganda's Lake Edward region, attacks on fishing boats are common enough that local fishermen factor them into their seasonal risk calculations, the way other professions factor in equipment failure. There are no reliable records of a single hippo ever backing down from an initiated attack. What makes the hippo more than simply a large, aggressive animal is what research over the last 2 decades has begun to reveal about its cognitive and social complexity. For most of recorded natural history, the hippo was treated as a relatively simple creature. Big, dangerous, territorial, but not particularly sophisticated. Or that assumption is being systematically dismantled. Hippos live in groups called bloats, typically 10 to 30 animals, dominated by a single alpha male who controls a stretch of river and the females within it. What researchers have found inside these groups is a level of social coordination that was not previously expected from an animal with this body plan and this evolutionary history. Hippos communicate using a sound that travels simultaneously through air and water, a low vocalization they produce with their mouths at the water's surface that splits, part of the sound wave traveling through the air, part conducted through their lower jaw and jawbone directly into the water. Other hippos receive the airborne portion through their ears and the underwater portion through bone conduction in their lower jaws. They are operating two communication channels simultaneously, something that took researchers years to fully document. More recently, a 2024 study published in Current Biology documented something that had never before been recorded in the animal kingdom. Hippos, responding to the calls of hippos they had never met, from populations on the other side of Africa, with social behaviors, suggesting a form of acoustic recognition that may function as something like a shared identity signal across populations. These are not simple animals. They are poorly understood animals. And in nature, the distinction matters. The hippo's relationship with its territory is the key to understanding why it kills as many people as it does. An alpha male hippo controls a section of river typically 250 to 500 meters in length. He defends it from other males constantly and violently. Fights between males involve those 50-centimeter tusks used at full force, and the wounds that result are severe enough that defeated males sometimes die from their injuries. The territorial imperative in the hippo is not a preference. It is a physiological drive, as fundamental as hunger, and the territory is shrinking. Africa's human population has grown dramatically over the last century. River systems that were once shared by hippos and small fishing communities are now lined with farms, villages, and agricultural infrastructure. Hippo habitats have been reduced by over 50% in the last 30 years alone. The populations of hippos that remain are increasingly concentrated in smaller areas of viable water, pressed against human activity on every side. In this environment, encounters are not accidents. They are inevitable. And the hippo that encounters a human in a compromised, crowded territory is a hippo under resource pressure. The same condition that makes every large, dangerous animal more dangerous. In the Democratic Republic of Congo's Virunga National Park, rangers responsible for hippo protection have some of the most dangerous jobs in conservation. Poaching has reduced some populations by 95%. The remaining animals are stressed, displaced, and concentrated in strips of viable habitat surrounded by human activity. A hippo with nowhere to go and 2,000 kilograms of territorial instinct is a hippo that will make a decision you will not survive. There are approximately 115,000 to 130,000 hippos remaining in the wild. The species is classified as vulnerable to extinction by the IUCN. Their range has collapsed across most of West Africa, where they were once widespread, and viable populations now exist primarily in East and Central Africa, in river systems that are increasingly contested. The animal that has been killing more humans than any other large land predator for centuries, the animal that drove entire ancient civilizations to treat it as a symbol of chaos, that caused Egyptian pharaohs to conduct ritual hippo hunts as acts of cosmic warfare against disorder itself. That animal is losing. And here's what you're supposed to feel when you reach the end of a story like this. A neat resolution, a moral, something that tells you what to do with everything you just learned. There isn't one. The hippo is not a villain. It is not a monster. It is an animal that has lived in African waterways for 55 million years, longer than humans have existed in any recognizable form. It developed its aggression in an environment that demanded it. It kills humans because humans walk into places that hippos have occupied since before the concept of a human being existed. It does not hate us. It does not plan against us. It simply refuses to accept that its water is no longer its water. And every year that refusal kills hundreds of people who made the mistake of assuming that an animal that looks like something from a children's cartoon could not possibly be the most dangerous thing standing between them and the shore. The hippo does not care what you thought it was. It only cares that you are in its river.